into it. So it's very clear to see that there's something going on in the WNBA. You could seriously rake your fingernails across Caitlin Clark's eyes with the ref looking right at the play and they don't call common foul. These are flagrant fouls. Look at it. There's no ball. Caitlin Clark passed the ball. And it's okay with all your body weight to knee her in the groin and put your fist in her throat. Yes, I said that right. Not a common foul.
That is the clip that changes the whole conversation. Because this is not a debate about whether Caitlin Clark gets bumped sometimes. The question is much sharper than that. How many times can a referee be looking straight at contact and still somehow nothing gets called?
So we're back with another one. This one will make you sick. So I stacked up so much evidence and I always show every flagrant foul committed to Caitlin Clark. But today, just to make it easy for all the haters and all the fans, I took every time the refs were looking right at Caitlin Clark and didn't call a foul at all. These are flagrant fouls. Over 20 flagrant fouls.
The argument being made here is not subtle. The creator is saying he went back through the tape, stacked the clips, and separated one type of moment from everything else. Not every hard foul, not every missed call, not every physical possession, but the plays where the official appears to have a direct line of sight and the whistle still never comes. That distinction matters because a missed call in a crowded lane can happen. A referee blocked by bodies can miss something. A fast break can unfold too quickly. But when the camera shows the official planted in position, watching the play develop, and the contact still does not even become a common foul, that is where fans stop talking about normal officiating mistakes and start asking whether there is a pattern. And that is why this story has hit such a nerve. Caitlin Clark is not just another rookie guard trying to find her place. She is the league's biggest television draw, one of the most talked about players in the sport, and the player whose highlights are constantly being used to sell the product. So when that same player keeps ending up on the floor, keeps absorbing contact around the head, legs, and landing space, and keeps getting told to simply play through it, the audience sees a contradiction. The league benefits from her attention, but the whistle does not always look like it is protecting the asset. But the part that should actually bother people comes later, because some of these examples are not just about contact. They are about what happens after Caitlin reacts, when the original contact disappears from the conversation and suddenly the reaction becomes the only thing the officials punish.
The Asia whistle, them rolling out the red carpet for Paige Beckers and giving them calls where they're not being touched. So you can't tell me there's not a double standard when players like Asia Wilson and Paige Beckers get to go to the free throw line for not being touched, and Caitlin Clark could take fingernails to her eyeballs. So if you watch this video and can't come to the conclusion,
this is where the double standard argument comes in. The creator is not just saying Caitlin Clark gets hit. He is putting her whistle next to players like Aja Wilson and Paige Buchers, then asking why the threshold for contact seems to look different depending on who has the ball. Now, to be fair, every star player has fans who believe their player is officiated unfairly. Aces fans can point to nights where Aja gets hammered inside. Wings fans can point to physical possessions. Liberty fans can show their own list. That is part of basketball. Every fan base has a grievance reel, but Caitlin's case feels different because of the kind of plays being discussed. This is not just about hand checking at the top of the key. It is not just about body contact on a drive. The reel keeps coming back to vulnerable situations. A shooter in the air, a player's landing zone, contact around the face, contact after the ball is gone, screens where her body gets rocked, and moments where the whistle either comes late, comes wrong, or never comes at all. And when fans see a star get touch fouls on one end, then see Caitlin absorb obvious contact on the other end with nothing, the debate stops being technical. It becomes emotional. Because to a lot of viewers, the sport is asking them to accept two different versions of legal defense. One version for everyone else, and one version for Caitlin Clark.
Into it. So it's very clear to see that there's something going on in the WNBA. You could seriously rake your fingernails across Caitlin Clark's eyes with the ref looking right at the play and they don't call foul called.
The eye contact plays are where this conversation gets uncomfortable, because there are very few basketball arguments that make sense once a player takes contact near the face and the whistle stays silent. You can debate verticality, you can debate marginal body contact, you can debate whether a defender got there first. But when the replay shows a hand or fingernail near the eye area, the standard should be simple: stop the play, review what happened, and make the correct ruling. That does not mean every piece of face contact is intentional. It does not mean every opponent is trying to injure Caitlin Clark. Basketball is chaotic. Arms swing, hands reach, defenders are fighting through screens, shooters are changing pace, and sometimes ugly contact happens because the game is moving at full speed. But intent is not the only thing officials are supposed to evaluate. A play can be reckless without being malicious. A play can be dangerous without being planned. And when the league talks about player safety, those distinctions matter. Because the viewer at home is not asking officials to read minds. They are asking officials to enforce the rulebook when the contact is visible. That is the core frustration. Fans are not saying every Caitlin Clark collision must be treated like a scandal. They are saying the basic process looks broken. If a player gets hit near the eyes, review it. If a shooter lands on a defender's foot, review it. If a player takes contact after the ball is gone, review it. The controversy grows because too often, the broadcast moves on while the audience is still staring at the replay, asking how the whistle never arrived.
There's no ball. Caitlin Clark passed the ball. And it's okay with all your body weight to knee her in the groin and put your fist in her throat. Yes, I said that right. Not a common foul. Or how about this one? Playoffs. Everybody's watching. When she shoots a three, you can take her out. These aren't common fouls. These should be flagrant fouls, every single one.
This section is where the tape moves from missed contact to the question of escalation. Because once the ball is gone, the standard is supposed to get stricter, not looser. If Caitlin has already passed, released, or completed the play, defenders do not get extra freedom to crash through her body just because the possession is still alive somewhere else. The creator points to the throat area contact, the lower body contact, and the playoff physicality as examples of plays that, in his view, should not have been treated as ordinary basketball. And even if someone disagrees with his strongest wording, the underlying question is legitimate. Why does so much of the roughest contact become visible only after fans slow the clip down online? That is a dangerous place for a league to be. The WNBA does not want its officiating system litigated possession by possession on social media. But when the live whistle fails, that is exactly what happens. Fans become the review center. Creators become the evidence room. Every missed call becomes a viral exhibit. And every league explanation is judged against the footage people can pause frame by frame. This is also where the league's own growth works against it. More viewers means more camera angles, more viral clips, more people who understand the rules, and more people who will not accept a vague explanation. The same Caitlin Clark effect that brings attention to the league also brings attention to everything the league used to get away with quietly. A missed call in a half-empty arena can vanish. A missed call on Caitlin Clark becomes a two-day debate.
Here we go against the Storm. You could clearly see Caitlin Clark's neck get bent back because an elbow comes to the top of her head while she's making a layup. No foul called. This is insane. A few games ago, Caitlin Clark in her 45-point game shoots a three-pointer. Somebody's in her landing zone. She could have had 50 points in 29 minutes. Against the Storm again, her legs get taken out. This is crazy, and it's too many times.
The Seattle sequence adds another layer because now the issue is not only the type of contact, but the cost of the no call. Caitlin is attacking the rim, absorbing contact, getting knocked off balance, and still being expected to finish through it like none of it matters. That is where the field goal percentage conversation becomes misleading. If a player is constantly forced into difficult attempts, constantly picked up full court, constantly shaded by help defenders, and frequently contacted on the release or landing, then raw efficiency does not tell the whole story. A clean catch-and-shoot three is not the same shot as a three where the defender closes under your feet. A layup through vertical contact is not the same as a layup where the body gets twisted mid-air. The creator connects this to her 45-point, 10-assist performance on limited minutes, and that is the tension. She is producing historic numbers while also playing through a level of physical attention that most guards do not face every possession. That combination is why the debate is so intense. If Caitlin were struggling, critics would say she cannot handle the league. But when she dominates anyway, the argument flips. Now fans ask how much better the performance could have been with a normal whistle. That question is powerful because it does not require believing in a conspiracy. You can remove the strongest accusations and still land in a serious place. If a player scores at that level while taking that kind of contact, the missed calls are not just about fairness. They are about the record book. They are about health. They are about whether the league is allowing defense to cross a line because the player is talented enough to survive it.
That's how good she is. Somebody's in her landing zone every time she shoots the ball, and they want to talk about field goal percentage. I think the standard is a little bit different when it comes to the way they play defense on Caitlin Clark, the way they assault her, and the way they attack her. And so some people would say she flopped. There's somebody in her landing zone, and their bodies connect. If you're shooting a three, a defender should not be connecting with you. Look at this. She's making these shots and getting hit. And every time she shoots, getting hit in the head.
The landing zone issue may be the cleanest part of the case because it is one of the easiest things for viewers to understand. When a shooter leaves the floor, the defender has to contest without invading the space where that shooter needs to land. That is not a Caitlin Clark rule. That is a basketball safety principle. The creator's point is that Caitlin keeps making shots while getting contacted, and that actually works against her. If she misses badly or falls dramatically, maybe the whistle comes. If she hits the shot, the contact gets treated like background noise. That is a brutal standard for great players because it effectively punishes balance, toughness, and shot making. And this is where the she flopped response falls apart on some of these plays. A player does not have to be launched into the third row for contact to matter. If a defender gets into the landing space, clips the legs, bumps the body, or forces a shooter to come down awkwardly, that is a safety issue even when the shooter tries to stay upright. The rule is not supposed to wait for an injury before it becomes real. The broader problem is consistency. If officials call landing zone contact tightly in one game, players adjust. If they ignore it in another game, defenders get bolder. And when the most aggressive defense against Caitlin keeps being rewarded with no whistle, opponents learn the real standard. They learn they can crowd her space, test the edges, and see how much the refs are willing to allow. Over time, that changes the way she is guarded.
Again, no foul called. Playoffs. She got whacked. She got hammered. Marina Mabrey hammers her. No foul called. A ref looking right at the play. So Brittany Griner dips her shoulder. That's a football move. Right into Caitlin Clark's face. No foul called. Look at this. Alyssa Thomas literally pushes Caitlin Clark in midair with her arm right in front of the referee. No foul called. We can't.
This is the stretch that keeps the early middle from becoming just a complaint reel, because now the video starts naming the pattern across different opponents. Marina Mabrey, Brittany Griner, Alyssa Thomas. Different teams, different games, different types of contact, but the same reaction from the audience. How is that not, at least a foul? The Brittany Griner example is especially important because it shows why size and force matter. When a bigger player drives through a smaller guard, the officials have to judge more than just whether the defender was perfectly still. They have to judge displacement, shoulder contact, and whether the offensive player created illegal advantage. If the smaller player absorbs all the force and the whistle stays quiet, the message is that size can erase legality. The Alyssa Thomas mid-air push is another kind of test. Contact on an airborne player is different from contact on the floor. Once a player leaves the ground, they cannot protect themselves the same way. They cannot regain balance with a step. They cannot absorb contact through their base. So when a player is moved in the air, even slightly, the danger goes up. Again, this does not require calling every opponent dirty. That is too easy, and it misses the bigger story. The bigger story is that the officials are supposed to be the guardrail. Players will always push the limits. Coaches will always tell defenders to be physical. Playoff intensity will always rise, but the whistle is supposed to define the boundary. If the boundary disappears, the game becomes a test of what Caitlin can endure instead of what the rules allow.
Can't forget this one. Just 2 players sandwich her. And then last game, I don't care what they say, Jonquel Jones was not vertical, and she moved her foot right before she sets this screen the other night against the Liberty. But they will never admit that anything's illegal when it comes to Caitlin Clark. And here we go. This is a legal screen. She was still, but this is just...
Now we get to the screen debate, and this is where the argument becomes more technical. Screens are not automatically dirty just because the collision looks bad. A legal screen can still hurt. A defender can run into a stationary screener and get flattened because they did not see it coming. That is part of basketball. But the concern in these clips is not simply that Caitlin gets screened. It is how often she is being targeted off the ball, how much force is being allowed, and whether moving feet are being ignored in moments that directly create contact. The Jonquel Jones example, according to the creator, is about whether the screener was truly set or whether the foot movement made the screen illegal. That is a rules question, not just a fan complaint. And the off-ball part matters because it is easier for officials to lose discipline when the ball is somewhere else. Caitlin's gravity is unusual. Even when she is defending or moving away from the play, opponents are aware of her. They screen her hard, they bump her, they try to wear her down. That is a normal strategic idea, but it still has to be officiated. This is why the "it happens to everyone" defense does not fully answer the concern. Yes, basketball is physical. Yes, great players get extra attention. Yes, off-ball screening is part of the sport. But if one player is being hunted physically because everyone knows the whistle is loose around her, that is not just normal physicality. That is a league-wide scouting report built around officiating tolerance.
Unnecessary crap. You have 2 of the biggest players on the court so worried about Caitlin Clark when she's on defense. They're going to injure her. This one the other night, go 2 hands right to Caitlin Clark's chest, a Foley push. There is no foul called. And then watch this one. Not only was it not called a foul, it was called a foul on Caitlin Clark, and that hurts. Same one here. She takes an elbow. No foul called. It was overturned and called a foul on Caitlin Clark. Like, this is crazy.
This is the payoff teased earlier. The moment where the reaction gets punished harder than the original contact. The creator shows plays where Caitlin takes a push, an elbow, or a collision. Then somehow, the foul either never gets called on the opponent or ends up being assessed against Caitlin. That is the part that drives fans crazy, because it feels like a double penalty. First, she absorbs the contact. Then, if she reacts, complains, claps, or shows frustration, the officials notice that immediately. The original physicality can be missed, but the emotion afterward gets captured in high definition. This is not just about one technical foul or one overturned call. It is about trust. Players can live with a hard whistle if it is consistent. They can live with a loose whistle if it is consistent. What breaks trust is when the physical contact is treated as invisible until Caitlin responds, and then suddenly the officials become extremely precise. And this matters for her behavior too. Critics will say Caitlin complains too much. But players usually complain when they believe the normal channels are not working. If she drives, gets hit, and says nothing, nothing changes. If she shoots, lands in traffic, and says nothing, nothing changes. If she gets shoved off ball and says nothing, nothing changes. So eventually the frustration becomes visible, and then the visible frustration becomes the story. That is a convenient cycle for people who already dislike her. They ignore the first action, isolate the reaction, and say, "See, she is the problem." But if you watch the full sequence, the real question is not whether Caitlin should control her emotions. Of course she should. The question is why the whistle so often seems to arrive only after the moment has already gotten out of control.
You can't make this stuff up. In this one, the other night ago, look at who makes the contact first with a hand on Caitlin. And then just like Caitlin Clark said, she got a knee to her thigh. It's clear as day what happened in that play. Usually when Caitlin Clark makes a movement or says something, it's right on target. And then Kelsey Plum clearly pushes Caitlin Clark when she's shooting, but play on, there's no foul. Sorry for the quality of this, but a big old foot underneath of her while she's getting hit again against the Chicago Sky. Every time she shoots a three, she gets taken out.
This part brings the case back to the lower body. And lower body contact is the nightmare scenario for any shooter. A hand on the hip can affect balance. A knee to the thigh can change the landing. A foot under the shooter can turn a routine jumper into a dangerous fall. And because Caitlin shoots so far behind the line, defenders are often closing at high speed, which makes the margin for safe contests even smaller. The Kelsey Plum example is framed as a clear push on a shot. The Chicago example is framed around contact and a foot underneath her space. Those are exactly the kinds of plays that need clear enforcement, because they are not just about whether the ball goes in. They are about whether the shooter can trust that they will have somewhere safe to come down. This is also where the league has a business problem. Caitlin Clark is not only a player, she is appointment television. Her games change ratings. Her highlights travel outside the normal WNBA audience. Her presence pulls casual viewers into matchups they might otherwise skip. So when those new viewers turn on the game and see repeated no calls, they are not bringing years of league context with them. They are judging the product immediately, and the product they see can look confusing. The league promotes skill, pace, shooting, and star power. Then the biggest shooting star in the league gets defended in ways that often look more like survival drills than basketball possessions. That is a branding problem. You cannot sell a player as the future of the league while letting the present become a nightly argument about whether she is being protected.
Despite the rest, despite the opposing players, Caitlin Clark is still doing things that's never been done in the history of the league. Legendary performance after legendary performance. I looked at statistics. She gets a hard time because of her field goal percentage, which she's getting demolished. Every time she shoots the ball, she's getting full court. She's getting double teamed. She doesn't get open looks. She makes open looks happen for her team. But she has almost identical field goal percentage and three-point percentage as Kobe Bryant, one of the hardest workers in the history of the game of basketball. She also has a better shooting percentage this year.
Now the script flips from the officiating case to the performance case. And this is the part Caitlin's critics have the hardest time dealing with. Because despite the contact, despite the pressure, despite the defensive attention, she keeps producing moments that have never been done before. The creator brings up her shooting percentages compared to Kobe Bryant and Diana Taurasi, and the point is not that Caitlin has already become either player. The point is context. Great shot creators often carry difficult efficiency profiles because they are taking the hardest shots, drawing the most attention, and creating offense when nothing else is available. Kobe's career was built on impossible attempts under impossible pressure. Taurasi's legacy was built on range, toughness, and the willingness to take shots that bend a defense. So when people use Caitlin's percentages as a cheap attack, they are often ignoring the burden attached to those attempts. Caitlin is not standing in the corner waiting for clean looks. She is bringing the ball up against pressure. She is seeing traps. She is manipulating help defenders. She is throwing passes that create layups before the defense even knows it is beaten. And then, after doing all of that, she is still expected to shoot from deep with a defender inside her airspace and make the box score look clean enough for people who never watched the possession. That is why the 45-point, 10-assist performance matters beyond the number itself. It was not just a hot shooting night. It was a statement about scale. She can generate superstar production even when her minutes are controlled, even when the whistle is uneven, and even when opponents build their entire defense around slowing her down. The controversy is not that Caitlin needs special treatment to succeed. The controversy is that she is succeeding anyway, and the league still cannot make the environment look stable.
And Diana Taurasi had for her career average in shooting percentage. She's won 2 Player of the Weeks and had a 45-point, 10-assist game on a minute restriction, something that's never been done. She contributed more points per minute than Wilt Chamberlain did in his 100-point game. Put that into perspective.
The Wilt Chamberlain comparison is designed to shock people, and it should be handled carefully. Nobody is saying a regular season WNBA game is the same thing as Wilt's 100-point night. Different eras, different leagues, different pace, different context. But the creator's point is about points created per minute, and that is why the stat lands with Caitlin fans. When a player is on a minutes restriction and still creates that much offense, the natural question becomes, what would the number have looked like with a normal workload? That is the frustration underneath the celebration. Caitlin gives you a historic performance, and the audience immediately wonders whether it could have been even bigger if she had stayed on the floor longer, gotten a cleaner whistle, or received the same protection other stars seem to get. This is where the story becomes bigger than one highlight reel. It is about how the league handles a once-in-a-generation attention spike. Every sport says it wants growth until growth arrives and exposes the weak points. More fans means more scrutiny. More scrutiny means officiating mistakes become harder to hide, and when the player driving that growth is also the player at the center of the most viral no-call clips, the league cannot just shrug and say, physicality is part of the game. Physicality is part of the game. Recklessness cannot be. Hard defense is part of the game. Invading landing space cannot be. Screening is part of the game. Moving into a player's path late and crushing them cannot be ignored. Emotion is part of the game. Punishing only the reaction while missing the cause cannot become the standard, and that is why the next step matters. If the WNBA wants this conversation to calm down, it does not need a speech. It needs consistency. It needs officials to review vulnerable contact plays the same way every time. It needs the league office to explain upgrades and non-upgrades clearly. It needs players to know what is legal before the game gets out of control. And it needs Caitlin Clark to be officiated neither like a protected celebrity nor like a target everyone is allowed to test. Just officiate the play.
But I'm giving away my Caitlin Clark jersey for All-Star Weekend to one lucky member. I understand if you can't be a member, it's around $5 a month. But I do truly appreciate every single one of you. We'll be doing a drawing during All-Star Weekend for the Caitlin Clark jersey. Thank you so much for everyone that subscribes. We just hit 190,000 subs. We should be at 200,000 in about a month from now. So just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Me and my family truly appreciate it. But we're gonna keep stacking up the evidence, keep bringing the proof.
The ending of the source video is a thank you to the audience, but it also reveals why this issue is not going away. The creator says he is going to keep stacking evidence every day, and that is exactly what the league should expect from fans now. Every game is being clipped. Every angle is being slowed down. Every whistle and every non-whistle is being compared to the last one. That is the new reality around Caitlin Clark. The WNBA is not operating in a small room environment anymore. It is being watched by people who debate officiating like NFL fans, track ratings like media analysts, compare superstar treatment like NBA fans, and turn every suspicious sequence into a viral courtroom exhibit by the next morning. So the league has two choices. It can treat this as fan noise and hope the argument burns itself out, or it can understand that the noise is coming from a real credibility gap. When people believe the whistle is inconsistent, they do not just complain about refs. They start questioning the fairness of the product. They start wondering whether certain players are allowed to be more physical with Caitlin because of resentment, rivalry, or the pressure that comes with her spotlight. Some of those claims go too far and should be framed as opinion, not fact. But the footage still has to be answered, and the answer cannot be, stop talking about it. Caitlin Clark is too important to the league's present, too central to its growth, and too visible for this pattern to be ignored. If officials get the call right, fans will still argue. That is sports. But if officials keep appearing to miss the obvious ones, then the clips become the story, the refs become the villain, and every great Caitlyn performance gets dragged into the same question. Is this just the normal, physical welcome every star has to survive, or is the league allowing the line around Caitlyn Clark to move in a way it would never allow for anyone else? Pick a side in the comments, because that answer tells you what you think this league is becoming. And if you want the full breakdown every time the tape exposes something new, like the video, subscribe and stay locked in.